So welcome to today's workshop. It's lovely to see everyone. My name's Alison Bell and I'm looking forward to exploring and sharing some ideas on keeping learners engaged in the swimming lesson. So let's have a look at what we're going to explore in this half-an-hour session. So we're going to look at or identify what tools we already have. And I don't know how many of you have been teaching for how long, etc. I know I've been teaching for 36 years, and I think sometimes it's really good to revisit the tools we do have, and sometimes perhaps we don't always use them all the time. We're also going to just have a look at the strengths you already have. And it would be great if you can share some top tips of your own to how you keep your swimmers engaged in the lesson. And then the last part will be just thinking about our planning. And I think a lot of effective teaching is down to the planning. And do we plan for engagement within our lessons? So the first thing I would like to explore with you is building rapport. Now, for me personally, this is one of the key elements to engagement within the lesson. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to talk a little bit about it, how I tend to try to build rapport with people. And once you get to know your swimmers really well, then you can use those tools or those things they like within the lesson. So one of the biggest things is asking questions, and sometimes the right questions. You're probably aware of using open questions. Things like, what have you done today? How are you feeling? What might you do later? What was school like today? All of those kind of questions are really useful to finding out information and showing your interest. If you can gain eye contact with who you're talking to, that really does help. And it also helps with active listening. So when you're listening to somebody, that you're sort of nodding and you're kind of showing that interest. I do think body language is a really big one, actually. At the moment, I know a lot of my staff, are a little bit under the weather, and sometimes when you come into teaching, we need to make sure that we are looking happy and our body language is open, etc. So I wanted to share these suggestions with learners. So I was teaching artistic swimming before COVID, and we used to do a lot of standing on shoulders as part of an activity. We've had to stop all that during COVID because of restrictions. And the other week, a swimmer asked me whether they could do some standing on shoulders. So I said, yes, I'll plan that in for next week. That should be fine. And we did it the following week. And, she came up to me at the end of that lesson. She said, you're the only teacher that when I say, can we do something, that you actually make it happen. And that kind of resonated with me in quite a strong way, thinking actually it's quite important we do listen for rapport and engagement, because she loves coming and she's always willing to kind of also be part of her own ownership about what she wants to do. So I think feedback to individuals, showing your interest and that engagement with them and their learning, and also happy teachers using praise up and thumbs can be really useful with building rapport. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing sort of now, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into a breakout room. So it'd be great if you can switch your videos on and unmic. So if you'd like to do that now, that would be amazing. We're going to put you into groups of 2 or 3. You may not know the person that you go into the room with, but what I want you to do is I want you to try and find out at least 2 things about that person, and just kind of challenge your skills of how well you can talk to someone you don't really know, and find something out about them. So next time you meet them, you'll be able to kind of ask them about how did so-and-so go, for example. So let's just have a go at it. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, that might be a good thing in a way, because I think sometimes teaching can be uncomfortable when you're headed up with people that you don't know. So have a go. It's not a test. Just find out as much as you can. Take it in turns if you like. And then we're just going to come back and sort of just tell me how you found it. Is that okay? So just about 2 or 3 minutes, just to have a chat with someone, to build rapport with them, to find out about them. Okay, so enjoy, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. What device you're on, there is a chat function, and just all I want you to do is just put what will you take away from that, just doing that rapport. How important do you kind of feel that is when you start a lesson? Because I think sometimes when we teach lessons, particularly school lessons, it becomes a conveyor belt kind of, you know, in out with actually getting to know our swimmers. So just a comment in the chat function. What did you gain from doing that, even if it was just reminding us about, you know, getting to know people before we teach them. I didn't take his name early enough. Okay, yeah, so yeah, what the name is so important, isn't it? Make people feel at ease and have a value. Yeah, repeating people's names when you hear them. I know someone said to me once, being called your name is the most special thing, and I don't think we realise that, how important names are. So yeah, some great comments there. Just so really, it's just a reminder. And a lot of names are coming up there, isn't there? Breaks the ice conversation, very natural conversation. So, okay. Right, so I'm going to share the screen with you again, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we can sort of help get engagement within our lessons. So if I can ask everyone to just be on mute again, just for now, that would be really helpful. So using different learners to demonstrate. The reason I've put this in is what resonates with me, and I've learned over the years, and this comes from actually my eldest daughter, who's actually dyslexic, hated reading, but in school she was never asked to read anything, sort of any assemblies or anything that they did. But when she went to guides and they asked her to do readings for different activities, she'd be the first one to put her hand up. And, you know, she was supported being read when she was doing it in front of people. And that really built her confidence. And yet the school always chose the best people to do the demonstrations or the reading. And one thing that learned from me is when I'm teaching swimming is I actually try to keep the engagement there by using different children for demonstrations. I know it's important that it's a good demonstration, but try and use different learners for different types of demonstrations to build one, motivation, but also engagement in the lesson. Other things you might want to think about is using things like a demonstration doll to keep the interest and also the communication really clear. We do sell these at ASWIM UK in our shop. They last a really long time, but to do things like demonstrating handstands is so much clearer and engaging than trying to sort of do it yourself when you can only really show hands on the floor and maybe half a leg in the air, which might be entertaining. But also we've got things like surface dives. You can see Caroline here is demonstrating to them the pike position in a surface dive. You've got diving, very difficult to demonstrate, and also your somersaults. So using maybe some kind of equipment yourself will help with the communication and the understanding, because I think swimmers switch off when they can't understand what they need to do. So let's talk a little bit about swim picks. Some feedback that we've actually had from using swim picks is that some teachers are a little bit reluctant to spend time at the start of the lesson getting them ready. But it can be quite a building rapport amongst staff, sort of using, you know, what they're going to use, what they're teaching today, maybe exchange some ideas. And that can work really well. So it is worth the preparation. Well, from my own experience, using them makes the lesson far more engaging. So things that we could think about are storyboarding at the beginning of the lesson to engage them what they're doing. I think it's really hard when you're learning something to just go firing into a lesson without actually knowing what's going to happen. If you've got children with anxiety, that can be quite an issue. So it's actually useful to have them either on a board like this, maybe in the water with the children actually having a go at a few little bits before they get in. Another way of engaging is in stage 5, they have to do a sequence, and you can do sequences like this where you've got the cards on different floats or like circuits so that they can practice those skills. And it actually gives them a little bit of ownership because they don't necessarily need you there at each station telling them what to do, as the card does that for you. So again, that can keep them engaged without too much instruction from you. You can use them in the pool here to, as you can see, this little boy is really engaged there and he's just going to have a go at having a shower. Here we've got a teacher who's doing a demonstration. This child can see the cards, so we've got them engaged, and this child is okay just copying the demonstration. So again, that kind of helps to keep the engagement. We've got swim picks cards being used from the side. So again, we've got that difficult demonstration of a head first surface dive in stage 6. So that can be used. This one, I think the reason I've put this one in is for engagement. Is this time of year, I don't know how many of you have had sore throats or getting sore throats from being back after the summer and the winter coming in. But children become more engaged when there's less words spoken, sometimes I find. So having cards that you can hold up to have engagement, or even using sign language, can be really helpful. Here we can build rapport, we can let them know what they're doing through the lesson, and you can ask questions to check learning, so that also helps. We've got, I really like this picture. We do this quite a lot where a child may pick this card up off the float and show the rest of the class. So it's keeping them engaged. It might be if they show a star with their tummy up, they can pick the next card. So again, you're using that for engagement. We've got things like having the cards on the float, so as they swim across, they could perhaps, this is a shower activity on the float, but he could swim across, kicking his legs, and then he could have a shower whilst he's waiting, keeping him engaged. These 4 lovely children, this was Water Safety Awareness Week, and they were learning the 4 key water safety messages. So they could actually have those cards in the water, practicing treading water, perhaps explaining to each other what each one meant. So again, it kind of helps them keep engaged within the lesson. The last slide of these I want to share with you is sometimes instructions and rules can be tricky. So this card has been very popular, stay up and hold the side. And then we've got cards again that sort of like again, so you want to do that activity again. So you might just hold that card up to show them that they're going to continue practicing. This card I particularly like. Some children on the autistic spectrum struggle with time and when it's time to get out. So a 5-minute warning can be really useful to them. So other skills that we can use, and I'm sure you do, is thinking about planning different games using varieties. So we've got here where we've got the cards on floats. Children or teachers may pick up and do activities. I'm sure you do things like this where you've got colours, so you could use different coloured equipment. We do have swim picks with the 3 different traffic light cards in there. There's lots of games and songs that you can do. So using a variety of these games will create engagement. I know some swimming lessons are very swimmy, as in there's no kind of particular fun in there, and they can learn through fun and games. So it's so important to explore that to keep them engaged. Just a few ideas with engagement. So this little boy here, his name is Nima, on the autistic spectrum, but we had a lot of trouble getting him to swim. He would only swim in one place. And what did start to happen is that we started using these letters to get him into the deep end, to spell his name. And eventually with a noodle, he would go into the deep end. So again, that engaged him in the lesson, plus actually helped him move to the deep end. This little boy here loved Batman. He actually had a lot of lessons where he used to wear a policeman's hat. So even that just engaged him in the lesson. Because he had his hat on, he'd do anything you asked him to do. So he still comes, and he's a lovely lad. This boy is also on the autistic spectrum, and during this week we took these boats in. And where sometimes it's quite difficult to engage this young man, when we brought this boat in, the engagement was amazing. He was falling out of that boat. He was doing float, breathe, relax. He was doing the help position. And he repeated this many times. And with him, if he doesn't want to do something, he won't do something. But that was probably one of the best lessons he'd ever had. And it was purely down to a piece of new equipment. The few more slides just to share with you, just to think about other things that you could use. So sculling can be a really tricky skull, or, you know, children tend to be disengaged when you mention the word sculling. But these 5-litre bottles that you can get are great just for holding the position. Now, if you say we're doing sculling, but we've got these bottles, you're going to find them engaged in your lesson. You probably think I need to get out a bit, but these hoops, what I have done with some of my hoops, if I've put sparkly tape, waterproof tape all the way around them. So I've got red, green, blue, yellow, and they do things like jumping in. So they hold the hoop here and they jump in and it goes over their heads. In the Olympics in July, I took a flag into our intensive course and they were doing sculling and kicking with the flag, which again, they thoroughly enjoyed. And we did some strengthening of the legs, holding a ball up, which just made it a little bit different and engaging. So the last slide, which I think this is something we tried on my lessons this week, actually, our baby and toddler lessons. And this little boy, we actually set this station up at the beginning of the session to see where the children were waiting, whether they would play with it and what they'd do. And this little boy was actually really uncomfortable when he came in, but he started playing with all these toys. And by the end of it, it calmed him down. He was engaged in the lesson and he got in and had a really good lesson. So again, this is kind of a way of engaging reluctant swimmers, and I just think if you can do something that they like, then you're going to get the sort of the learning out of them. So what I want to do now is I'm going to stop sharing, but what I want to do is I want you to write down just really any comments from what I've spoken about, but more about, I want you to think about yourself and what's your strengths, what do you do, or what's your top tip that you can share with everybody to make sure that your learners are engaged in your lessons. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and let's have a look at the chat function. So think about yourself now. So you're going to share with everybody else what you think you use or what works for you to make sure that we do have children or adults engaged in your lessons. Okay, so let's see what we've got. So someone said they've used the dolls in the lessons during COVID and they were fantastic. People will forget what you say, but will never forget, you know, how you make them feel. Absolutely, absolutely. I asked my learners to be the teachers and what points of specific activities. Fabulous. And a bit of peer assessment. Bring a bag of toys for younger classes. Yeah, smile. I think that's gone a long way. I actually had an adult say to me on Tuesday night, "You're always so happy." And I'm thinking, in reality, I'm not. But I'd like to think at my lessons that if he feels that that's the case when he comes in, then that's lovely. So we've got positive and encouraging. Yeah, themed activities are great. Yes, I never mentioned themes, so thank you for that. So you've got Halloween coming up, so that's a great way. People are using swim picks and dolls, which are great, and I hope you are finding them useful because that's what they were produced for. Yeah, nursery rhymes. I think that's great, isn't it? With the youngsters, I think nursery rhymes are so important because they do like that. Yeah, games, games, games. Yeah, lovely. Try not to take myself seriously. I can be when needed, though. Yes, I think that's important because I think one thing when you become a fun teacher, sometimes what can happen is the class can get a little bit out of control if you're not careful. So there has got to be that sort of that time there. Someone said a need to demonstrate and explain better. Yeah, just have fun. Bright colours and various equipment. Yeah, I think tap into, I think for engagement, if you can tap into what they're learning. So if you've got your sort of under threes, for example, things like your numbers, your colours, literacy, numeracy, primary school children learn times tables. So tap into all of that information. And if you build the rapport at the beginning of the lesson, you might actually say, what are you learning in maths, you know, or what stories are you doing in literacy? So you get to know them, then you can use those tools within the lesson. So that's great. Learn to say thank you instead of please. Yeah. That's great. And I think actually on that thank you note, I think that's really, it's very nice to actually be thanked, isn't it? For the children, you know, if they come up with an idea, thank you for that, and thank you for listening and, you know, giving your opinion and etc. So that's great. So thank you for that. So remember to save your chat there for a little bit. And I'm going to share my screen again with you. And the last little bit I just want to think about is the planning. Now, these planners that I'm showing you on the screen now, we do have on our website in our shop. They are free. So feel free to download those and use them. They are designed to go with swim picks for your storyboard of what you'll do. It's a very quick and easy way to plan. I've done things like I've written my own little notes in here, but maybe can I suggest that perhaps these boxes down here, you think about, well, within this lesson, what am I doing to engage my learners? Don't put too much in there, just even if you do one new thing, that would be great. And then you can sort of build on that. So to summarize, I think a planned teacher is a teacher that can enjoy the lesson. I think a planned teacher can share what will happen at the start of the lesson. A planned teacher will plan engaging activities. And a planned teacher has time to engage with the learners. I do feel sometimes and I'm sure we've all done it, where you've taught off your head. And I have to say, I really don't like teaching where I haven't got a plan in place. Because I feel your head's more involved in what am I going to do next, rather than being in the moment and teaching the people you have in front of you. So if we can do all of those things, we have a nice, rounded, engaged lesson, which I think, you know, you'll enjoy as a teacher, and also the children will enjoy, and they will want to come back to your lessons to tell you a little bit more about themselves as well. So the last thing I want to do is, what will you plan for your learners to ensure they are engaged at your next teaching session? So just a little challenge in the chat box. So write something in that you think you might do that you haven't done for a while, or something that maybe I've reminded you about today. What will you do in your next teaching session? When you go, will you think about the rapport? Will you spend that 1 minute trying to build some rapport? Will you think about using a different piece of equipment? So let's just have a little think about, what will you do differently next time you teach? Yeah, different equipment. Use more toys. Yeah. I will use pictures to show activities. Yeah, that works really well. Set up toys at the side for the new swimmers. Yeah, I think that absolutely works. Sing more. Well done, Lisa. Yeah, sing more. I think kids do love that. Get to know them more again. Lots of new learners have just joined. Yeah, so get to know them, even if it's just a little bit each week. That will really help. Borrow your friend's swim pics. Love that. Brainstorm as a team and share ideas. Yeah, absolutely. I think even that 3 minutes or so you had at the beginning, it's just so lovely to to get together. Set up circuits with cards. They work brilliantly, and it keeps them engaged as well. So lovely, some great ideas. So I have some foam masks to try for backstroke today. Wow, that sounds great. Stick that on my on the ASWIM's Facebook page if you like, if you're allowed to. But that would be lovely. I love that idea. That's great. Right, I'm going to share my screen one more time with you. So we've looked at today, we've sort of identified tools that we perhaps have and hopefully reminded you about how to sort of engage in the lesson. You've had to think about the things that you already do and the strengths that you have, and thank you for sharing with everybody. So make sure you do save your chat. And just think about what you're going to plan for next week. Just think about the engagement and where that's going to take you. And I'm sure you'll continue to enjoy your lessons. So the last thing I just want to share with you before we take any questions or anything like that is next month on the 18th of November, I'm going to be doing, again, another half-hour session on keeping motivation effective in the lessons. And I'm going to try and make this half an hour as interactive as possible so that you get to talk to each other and sort of work out some ideas and that type of thing. So feel free to join us on that session. So you can book through the website or you can email us. My email is training@aswim.uk. So I will put that in the chat for you at the end, but it's training@aswim.uk is my email if you need to get hold of me. So thank you for listening, everybody. I am going to stop sharing now and I will take any questions. If any of you need to shoot off, that's absolutely fine. And thank you for coming along today.